Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Well, welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. As I've been saying for the past couple of weeks, this is your transition area where you get to come here to decompress, where we won't be distracted. We aren't turning a blind eye to reality, but we are choosing not to let it drain our batteries. We are going to control the controllables. We can't fix the world all at once, but we can control our kindness, our effort, and our community. We're going to fuel the fire. I am here to provide you with some really good stories and information to help you cross your personal finish lines, regardless of what is happening on the sidelines. And yes, we are going to recognize the struggle, refuse to contribute to the noise, but we're going to focus on the miles ahead. And with that, I have a guest today who got a rather late start. We've had people on the podcast who've had later starts, but when you start after 40, I think it's something special. And so our current guest got started in running at 48 years of age, but didn't start triathlon until she was 53. These are the kind of people who remind you that you don't have to look a certain way, move a certain pace, or have a certain background to belong here, but that showing up and starting counts. And if you spent any time in the online triathlon world, chances are you've already come across their work. She is the voice behind A Triathlete's Diary. She's a certified USA Triathlon coach, a USA Master Swimming coach, a running coach. She's a coach of coaches who's built her entire philosophy around meeting athletes exactly where they are. She proudly calls herself a non-athletic triathlete. And through that, she's helped redefine what an athlete looks like and who the sport is really for. Most recently, she authored Unlocking the Triathlon, the beginner's guide to competing in a triathlon, which is a guide that brings honesty, humor, and real beginner energy to every part of the journey. Her philosophy is simple: consistency over intensity, community over competition, and showing up over being the fastest. It is an honor and a pleasure to welcome Miss Hilary Topper to the Try Beginner's Luck audience. Hilary, welcome to Try Beginner's Luck. How you doing?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate this. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm just really curious. I'm one of those people who I'm a lurker on social media. Like I engage because I have to, but I don't really enjoy it. And so I had not come across your profile yet. And I was like, how did I miss out on all this greatness? You are doing it, lady.
Thank you.
I'm encouraged by you. Give me tips, give us tips on how to do social media well. You have a great following and you're out there showing us what it takes, being vulnerable with your workouts. I adore that. How has that been for you as you've continued to build your platform?
I think at first, when I first started, I was a little bit intimidated because there are so many athletes out there who are so great and so amazing. And, I think what we do, and I think we all do this, is we compare ourselves to others. And that's a mistake, because once you do that, then you start feeling bad about yourself. And, and then I just realized, you know what, there's got to be other people like me out there who are starting out, or either older, or they're maybe a little bit overweight, or maybe they're whatever. It doesn't really matter. But the thing is that, we're all in a community together, and we're all trying to, to do this and to be healthy and to have a healthy lifestyle and have fun. And that's really the main thing about this.
You capitalized on one of my favorite words, F-U, and who doesn't have fun when they're trying? I mean, okay, in the act of trying, maybe not so much fun, but the end goal and getting to races or events, that truly is fun. And then connecting with so many people.
So
You've
much.
seemed to master that. What has that been for you? And what has been the trajectory since you've started the race at more of a, I would say, more mature adult, because I think age is really just a number and how you feel. And you present very youthful, energetic. And so, what has it been like for you entering the space when you've already had a career?
Take you back. So I'll take you back to like what happened and how it all started, because it was and I guess I'll just, I'll answer the question as I go. But, so yes, you said when I was 48, I started running for the first time in my life. I never ran before. I never was athletic. When I was in school, like women really weren't encouraged to get involved in sports. They didn't have the sports that they have today. I mean, today is like, it's so great, basketball and all these different sports. And it wasn't really like that common. So I just kind of, hung out with my friends and, cut gym. And when they told us to run around the track, I ran, hid, and then when the whole thing was over, I reappeared. It was like that. Anyway, so I'm 48. I'm working like crazy hours at my public relations firm, and I decided that I needed a change. I was getting so overweight, and so I just felt like, you know what, if I don't do something, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not going to be a good thing. So I joined a gym. I go on the trainer, and this was like my whole entree to the sport, was when the trainer says to me, go on the treadmill, run on the or walk on the treadmill, warm up. And I look at this thing and I don't know how to turn it on. It was that like crazy, right? Because I had never been in a gym before. So I asked the woman next to me who was running, and the sweat's like dripping down her face. It's like all over the floor. And I said to her, can you just help me for a minute? And she was really gracious, and she stopped and she helped me turn it on. And that was the start of it. I started to run with a friend. Um, I was very intimidated at first. I didn't want to run with her. She had just done the New York City Marathon, and I was very nervous about running with her. Anyway, I said, okay, fine, we'll do this. And it turned out we were kind of the same pace. We were doing like a run walk of some sort. And then I guess fast forward, I was 53, and we had just done the Brooklyn Half Marathon. And she said to me, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And I said to her, oh, let's try a triathlon, not knowing that I had to know how to swim and cycle and, do those things that I never did before. So that was a lot, learning how to swim, learning how to clip and unclip, and really learn how to ride the bike, not going 5 miles an hour, but going a lot faster than that, so it was a whole thing for me. But the thing I think about it is that the community is so amazing. No matter where you go around the country, people embrace you. It's like nobody's looking down at you. It's you who's looking down sometimes at yourself, but nobody else is. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. And that's how it all started.
Hillary, I am curious. How do you go from running the Brooklyn Marathon, your friend saying she's done, to a triathlon? How did you even know about triathlons? Had you seen it somewhere? Like, How did it pique your curiosity to even say we should try this instead of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what happened was I was an original Google Glass Explorer. There was this, I don't know if you know what that is, but for those of you out there who don't know what it was a pair of glasses, kind of like the Meta glasses, like Facebook, where you could take video and photographs and it connected with your social media. So this was like a Google product and it was amazing. And I was invited with four other people down to Florida to Sanibel to do like an exploration and, videotape and stuff like that. They wanted us to videotape and photograph the area for their tourism board, so to get people interested in going there on vacation. Anyway, long and short of it, as I was there, I was running a little bit, and the tourism director said to me, if you like to run, you would love the Captiva Tri. So, so that's what I mentioned to her because I thought the area was so beautiful, but I didn't realize like what went into this whole thing when we signed up for it. So, I mean, she was a little bit more prepared than me. Yeah. So that's how that happened. And it was in Florida, no less. I mean, I could have picked a location here, but I didn't even know. I live in New York. I didn't even know that there were triathlons here.
Wow.
Yeah,
So I want to make sure I'm tracking the story correctly. You're in Florida for this Google adventure tour. The tour guide suggests, hey, you should do a triathlon. But then you go back to Florida to do your first triathlon
correct.
because you didn't know. Okay, let's break this down a little bit because I think what happens here is what happens with so many, or I should say not so many people, but a lot of people can resonate with this story. They do a race, they do it outside of their state, not knowing how close triathlon is in proximity. But Florida, though, like you skipped over like 10 to 15 states to get, you go from the top to the bottom, or not necessarily the top because top would be Maine, but I'm confused. Like you didn't think to say, hey, let me look in Virginia, let me look in Georgia, South Carolina. You go to Florida?
Yeah, I mean, I just thought the area was so gorgeous, that Sanibel Island. I just thought it was beautiful. And I thought this would be like a beautiful first to do it there. So that's how that came about. I mean, I didn't do any research. I later found that there were all of these triathlons in New York, on Long Island. We actually did the Nation's Try in Washington when they had that. That was amazing back in the day, so stuff like that. But at the time that I signed up, I had absolutely no idea. It was when I hired a coach where he kind of told me, oh, you should sign up for this, you should sign up for that. And that's how I kind of got into it more.
You remind me of me. You remind me of me a little bit, where I just do things and research later. And now that I see that, I'm just glad to see that I'm not alone. Like, thank you for helping me know that there's others out there who do the same thing. Because people are like, Michonne, did you think to research? And I'm like, for what? It's like, I just wanted to do it. And I'm like,
Yeah,
dang, that could probably save you so much time and
yeah,
energy had you just done a little bit more research. But then that takes a little bit of the fun and the thrill out of it, right? Because when you over research and you overlook at things, then decision paralysis can set in and you get so overwhelmed with information that you don't take the first step and just try. So I think there could be a healthy medium for people like us out there in the world, but I kind of like the way we show up in the world. Like we show up and do think later and then we reassess and come back around, which is totally okay. So if you resonate with Hillary and I and how we do life, just give us a fist pump, like repost something, I don't know, but I love it. Like this makes me really happy. You talk a little bit about that in your book, and I didn't understand that the Google Adventure were actually like when it said Google Adventure goggles, I didn't think they were literally goggles, but they are literal goggles. And you said it was fun. I want to, are they still around?
So they
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, sure. So Google, right? So back, it was like back in like 2011, 2012, something like that. They came out with this pair of Google glasses that had like a little, if you, in the corner of your eye, you could see like an augmented reality. Almost like the form goggles. I don't know if you've ever tried those form goggles where like when you're swimming, you could see your stats in your eye, like, but it's like kind of like not in your peripheral, it's kind of above your eye, so you look up and you can see
Right.
it. So that was basically what Google Glass was. And what was cool about it was that, so there was a contest, okay? And I applied for this contest. I was, at the time, I had my public relations firm, and I thought, oh, it would be so great to get a pair of these Google Glass. Maybe I could do something with my clients. Maybe I could do, whatever. So I applied for this contest. It was an online contest on Twitter. And I said, if I had my Google Glass, I would wear my Google Glass during the Diva Half Marathon in Myrtle Beach, right? And nothing. I heard nothing. And I started seeing people on the internet getting a pair, and I was getting like, oh, I really want a pair. But they were $1,500. I mean, they weren't like cheap, they were really expensive. So then I started tweeting out, I want my Google Glass more than I want my MTV. And I get a call from Google saying, you know what, you're in the program, you'll be an explorer. They called us explorers in the beginning. So they gave them out to, I think it was like 8,000, I don't know. So it was like a couple of thousand people around the country to, get the word out about these Google Glass, but you had to pay for them. Anyway, so I paid for them. I went to Google. It was really crazy because I went into Google in Midtown Manhattan, and I get off the elevator, and everybody's wearing these Google glasses, and they look like, you almost look like an alien. They're like really weird looking. Um, if I had a pair, I would show them to you, but I don't have them handy. But anyway, so I actually do. But anyway, um, they, uh, so there were a lot of stuff going on with these, and they became, nobody bought them. They really weren't very popular. People thought that people look like cyberborgs and stuff like that. Like they weren't like, so anyway, so then they kind of phased out, and they only became popular in like merchandising, so like if somebody was in like a factory or something wearing them, their supervisor could see what they're seeing. It's pretty freaking cool, the technology behind it. And today there are many companies that use that same technology, including Form, that Google had invented, back in the day. Um, so yeah, I think I answered your question. I kind of like took a sidebar there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't know anything about it, and I'm sure people who might be listening might have been interested. So that's where my curiosity came from. But now going back to you and I having this wonderful attribute about ourselves about just doing it and then figuring things out. I think that's one of the things that you stress about in your book about finding your why, and that it's okay to not necessarily know your why up front, but that it can feel like the early mornings and the hard workouts could feel insurmountable if you don't know your why. But you also can discover your why along the way. And so I want to ask you, how have your why changed along your journey since starting triathlon at 53?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at first it was, I did it because my friend didn't want to do any more of these runcations with me. So I said, "Oh, let's try triathlon." Little did I know she went with one coach. I went with another coach, and we kind of like haven't done any races together since then, which is unfortunate because we really had a good time together. But so at that time, it was just doing it because of her. But then as I went along, I realized, I'm always proving something to myself. Like I want to prove to myself that I could do this, that and I guess it all stems like kind of from my childhood because I was like always told, oh, you're never going to amount to anything, like that. And so I always feel like I want to prove something, So, I mean, that's, like this past year, I didn't know how to swim when I first started. And last year I swam 8.3 miles around Mackinac Island in Michigan. Like, this year, I decided I'm going to raise money for cancer research, and I'm doing a 569-mile bike ride from Staten Island to Niagara Falls. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I do these things, I just kind of like want to do something else to prove that I could do this. And I know I could, but it's just there.
But you said it in your why. You like to keep proving things to yourself. And so with that, you're not complacent in just doing a triathlon. You said, okay, I didn't know how to swim. I'm going to do these 8.3 miles around an island, which, yes, it could be crazy to some people, but it's your crazy. And as long as it's your type of crazy, that's okay. But I want to go back. You mentioned the friend that you all did all the races with, and we talk a lot about community in triathlon. Not that it was technically a divorce, but it was a sportsmanship separation, right? Where you're still competing, but not competing together because I think you mentioned you went with different coaches. What was that like? Because this is your training buddy, this is your racecation partner. That had to be hard. And how did you find new community to do this sport with to continue to allow it to be enjoyable for you?
Yeah, it was really hard in the beginning because I was really close with her. She was, really my best friend. I mean, I felt like she was, you get like very, very close to people that you train with. And so I looked for other communities. I got involved with other, but then I just felt like I never had my own, the place where I really felt myself. So, and this is, I guess, goes back to my childhood because when I was growing up, I felt like I never fit in with everybody. So I had my own group of people. Like we were like the nerds, and we just hung out together. So that's what I did here. I actually started my own little group called We Are Endurance, and I had trained with Jeff Galloway. I had done he had trained me for the run walk method, and I started a group on Long Island where they just everybody was we are so similar in like different body shapes, different ages, different ethnicities, everything, like, but we all get together and we have the best time. And and then a few of them I kind of talked into doing triathlon, so now they're into triathlon. And you know we train together, and it's great. It's just fun to train with people. I do enjoy training alone sometimes because I feel like when I do long things, I come to terms with things, like if something's bothering me and I'm running or I'm cycling or even swimming, I just kind of get into the zone and think about like how to resolve these issues. And so, yeah, so that's basically it.
That's interesting that you say that because one of the guests earlier this month, Juan Pablo, he talks about how training has been therapy. And we are often told, just work out, do it. But sometimes people need the why behind it. And working out does have a way, especially when you're going longer distances and you're able to just sit in your stuff, you're able to wrestle with it independently, and when you come out you have more clarity. And so I'm glad that you vocalized that, because I think a lot of people who liked to, I should say, a lot of people who like to train with others sometimes miss out on that independent training time, especially to kind of get that clarity. So you started We Are Endurance. You've had this group of people that you're now encouraging to do triathlon. Let's take some steps back and go to your first triathlon when you were 53. What was that like? What was it like training? Get us from training to race day to the finish line.
I was so nervous. I have never been so nervous in my entire life. First of all, I had just learned how to swim, and now I am going to swim 400 meters in the on the other side of, it's not the ocean, it's the Gulf of Mexico. So it was the Gulf of Mexico. And I was really nervous about that. And the waves were really kicked up, and I was like, oh, but I actually I actually did that part good. Um, the bike was another story. That was really interesting. We rented bikes. They both, when we got the bikes home, back to the hotel, there was something wrong with them. So then we had to go back. It was like a kind of like a disaster. But the bike course was crazy because I had never been in a bike race before, and people are screaming on your left. I felt like I was in the Tour de France, like on your left. I'm like, what? What am I supposed to do? And then the run was amazing. It was difficult for me, even though it was a 5K. But I met so many people along the path. We ran around a golf course, and I met a couple of people who really stuck with me. And it's funny because you meet these people, and for the most part, like sometimes people come in and out of your lives, but then there are other people who you meet just once and they kind of stick with you forever. So yeah, so I met a few of those people at that race. And when I crossed that finish line, I was hysterical crying. It was crazy. Like I just could not believe the joy that I got from it. And I did it with my friend, my running partner at the time, and we just both looked at each other. We hugged each other. We were like 2 minutes apart from each other, even though we were in different age groups. Yeah, and I called my coach right away, and I told him, and he's like, "Well, did you call your family yet?" And I'm like, "They're still sleeping." But it was incredible. Like that was so amazing. That's the one thing I really thought was really cool about, not to toot my own horn, but my book, Unlocking the Triathlon, because I've got these first time stories in there by like people like Gwen Gergensen, who's like my hero, or Matt Fitzgerald, who's another hero of mine, and then I've got a bunch of age groupers, and, everybody's got like a little bit of a disaster, that first one. But there's something special about crossing that finish line. When you cross that finish line and you just know that you did something incredible, that is just so special. It definitely resonates and sticks with you.
So when did you determine that you wanted to do another triathlon, and what was the distance? Did you go up and say, okay, now I'm ready to try the Olympic. I'm going to go home and research where I can go do an Olympic. Was your Olympic or your next sprint, was it in New York this time since you had done more research? What happened next?
Yeah, so right after that, I signed up for the Montauk race. There's a race every October this was in September. That was in October. It was like only like 3 or 4, not even 4 weeks. It was about 3 weeks later. I said, you know what, I've got to sign up for this. And it was a sprint. I actually placed in that one and made it to nationals the next year. It's like, what? How could this be? But, so the following year I went way overboard, and I was doing these like sprint and Olympic distance races, like, every couple of weeks. I mean, it was ridiculous. Like I think I did like, I don't know, 10 or something like that one the following year. It was crazy. And then I slowed down a little bit. But I started at the sprint. Although a lot of people, like if you're starting out, there's no reason why you can't do a super sprint or even a relay. A super sprint though is fun because it's really short, and
Mhm.
you could, it's just fun. Um, but I did the sprint, and then I did quite a number of Olympics, and then I said, all right, I'm going to try for a half Ironman. And I actually I trained for a half 5 times, and all 5 times. And I signed up. I paid my $400-500 fee to Ironman. And then all 4 or 5 times that I did that, I got seriously injured. So it just never happened. And I'm like, you know what? God is telling me something over here. So I'm not doing this anymore. I'll stick with the sprint and Olympics for now.
Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, uh, so
Yeah,
many
frustrating.
no, it is frustrating because so many you train so hard for these things and they're not inexpensive. They are definitely very pricey. And to get injured or not finish is definitely hard to reconcile with a little bit. But when you determine what it is for you that you want to do and what you choose to do in the lane that you're happy in, it's okay to stick in that. And I think you talk a little bit about that. Like you have a whole section in your book about DNF, DNS, uh, and throughout, what does that mean? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because to have a whole section in your book on DNFs and DNSs, and I think there was one other term you used,
Uh, DQ.
DQ,
Yeah.
just being disqualified. Let's talk a little bit about that because I think sometimes it's a little bit of a faux pas. And to your point, going back when we talked about social media in the beginning, social media is typically the highlight reel. And who wants to share the unpopular reel of the unsuccessful version of a race, right? You don't get that too often.
No.
But that's where I feel like you've had a very unique transition in being vulnerable with your audience. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it stemmed from seeing people who uh, DNF, did not finish races that I looked up to, others out there, and it was like horrible. Like they were posting things like, oh, I'm such a failure, or, I mean, it was just really sad to see this. And I kept thinking to myself, look, it's not the end of the world if you do not finish a race. If you get pulled out of a race, it's not the end of the world. You still trained for that race. You still made it to the start line. You still tried your best, I mean, and that really bothered me to see posts like that on social media, just, oh, you know, or like what you said, you don't see that people like won't put anything up, or they just won't say anything about what happened at the race, even though maybe they promoted it prior to, and then nothing. It goes, blank. Um, I think we just need to embrace those outcomes, because I mean things happen, DNS did not start. I was signed up for Ironman Jones Beach. I guess it was about 3 years ago, 3 or 4. I don't know when they first started, the first year of Ironman Jones Beach. And there was the day before the race when I went to pick up the packet. It was a perfect day. That next day when I got to the race, there was a nor'easter. and the winds were like 40 miles an hour. I mean, it was really bad. I mean, I couldn't even like get my bike. Like I was bringing my bike to, or, I was going to transition and, and I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not going to get hurt. I'm not doing it. I mean, that was like the only time that I actually made it to the start line and said, mm-mm, not doing it. I just didn't want to get hurt. And a lot of people got hurt that year. They hushed it, but a lot of people I know got hurt, very hurt, from, the storm and everything like that. So, you've got to, I think you have to like trust your own instincts about this. And if there's a race that's happening that you feel really uncomfortable about doing, or it's not a crime. Okay, you trained, you enjoyed the training, you enjoyed the journey, and you move on, and there'll be other races.
There will be other races, and as some people say, you live to try again. Taking care of yourself is by no means an I don't want to say an easier way out, but it's self-care. You have to take care of yourself first, and then everything else will follow. So kudos to you. You often talk to about the Pathetic Triathlon group on Facebook, and I find it so funny. Tell me about that group and the funny stance, like you see people like riding or, you know,
So
tell me about that group and why the pose.
yeah, that's so funny. Well, that's the pathetic pose. But
Aha.
my friend, Bill, he runs the group, and so he's hysterical. Um, and I asked the group for different quotes from my book. So in the beginning of each chapter, I have quotes from the pathetic triathletes, and they told me some things that were so incredibly funny, like one guy, he went for the swim, had the wetsuit on, forgot the wetsuit was on, and got on the bike and went 26 miles with the wetsuit on. Like stuff like that, like funny situations that could really happen. I know for me, I after an aqua bike, I never took off my helmet, and I I was running through the finish line with my helmet on, which you're not supposed to do, but things happen. You're so in the moment. That's what I love so much about the sport, is that you're so in the moment. Like you're so focused on what's going on right at that very moment. Like most of us, we go through life, we're thinking about all these different things, and all these thoughts are going through our heads. And but when you're racing, you are racing. You are thinking swim, bike, run, transition, boom, done. Yeah, so anyway, so with the pathetic triathletes, they were terrific, and they really they there was a lot of um funny stories. There was one funny story where this guy, um he was doing Ironman Maryland, I think, or Island Man, Eagle Man. I'm not sure which one. But anyway, he was doing one of them. And after the swim, he was sitting there in transition, yapping away to everybody. Like he's a big, he likes to talk. He's a big talker. And he's talking to everybody. And the next thing he knows, there's nobody in transition but him. And the volunteers said, we're going to be closing transition in like 2 minutes. You got to go. And as soon as he left, he got DNF'd because he was talking so much during transition. So, things happen.
Yeah, but that's a hard one. Like you talking, you should not be. But
Should
I
not
get
be
it. We
taught.
all have different reasons on our why. Let me shut up, because I'm like, people like me who need all of my minutes don't talk to me at all. Oh,
That's me.
okay. Like,
I
do not
barely have
talk
time
to
to go to
me.
the bathroom.
Man, man, oh man. Speaking of the pathetic triathlon group, One of the things that I think I appreciate you saying in your book about, and this is a direct quote, the triathlon is more than just a race, it's a community, it's a lifestyle, a testament to the human spirit, and its ceaseless pursuit of self improvement. And one of the things that you identify is that the Pathetic Triathlon group is that community because sometimes family won't be supportive. And I don't think, or they may not know how to support. I don't want to say that they're not supportive, but may not know how to support. And I wanted to talk to a little bit about that because you mentioned that. And there might be somebody who may not have familial support or their family don't understand and they don't know how to support their athlete. And going back to Juan Pablo, I guess all these things kind of just flow in a line. He's like, hey, you need to talk to your family about what you're doing so they can support and understand these big purchases and talk about the purchases before you purchase a bike. So tell us a little bit about that and why you state that.
It's there are many families. I mean, there are some families and some, spouses that will go to every single race and be a Sherpa for their spouse, right? There, I mean, and I know so many people like that. Um, I don't have that in my family, My kids are very supportive but maybe they've been to maybe one or two races through the last, 10 plus years that I've been doing this. Um, but it doesn't really matter. It did in the beginning. Like in the beginning, I really, really wanted somebody to be there. But then I realized, you know what? I've got this community right here. And these people are my family. They're my triathlon family, and I just, again, there's just something really special about when you're training with people all the time. You develop such a closeness with them that, you know, no one really can understand. I mean, my family doesn't understand. They're not like your real friends. My husband would say they're not like your real friend. Oh, yes, they are. They actually know more about me than a lot of my friends know about me. Because you disclose things when you're training. You tell people things that you wouldn't normally talk about. You know, After my sister passed away, I can't even tell you how this group really helped me, really come to terms. I mean, there were people in this group, like, they lost children, they lost siblings, they lost parents, I mean, just so much loss, and everybody just came together, and we really helped each other, and that was really special and beautiful.
Sorry about the loss of your sister, but I also understand, sport has that way of helping to heal, right? Because like you said, you are talking to your family, your tri family,
Yeah,
more so than your real family,
true.
because, you're in this state of working out, you feel vulnerable and you feel safe. And I think in some instances, triathlon does provide that safe space
Yeah.
to do that. I want to touch on coaching before we wrap up. You became a coach in all the things. What has that been like for you? And what is the secret sauce to you being a coach? Because when did you become a coach? Your secret sauce to becoming this coach, because you started at 53. And so people will be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to try and I'm done. But you're like, no, I'm trying. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to be a coach because I want everyone to be able to enjoy this beautiful sport. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. So, I guess it was back in like 2019, I believe, that went for my certification, my first certification. And then after that, I started going for more, 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 more. And, the thing about it is that I love giving back. Like, that to me is really important. I think that that's my role in life, is to give back. And I felt like, I needed to have the expertise from my blog and for my books and stuff like that, but I also need the expertise to help other people develop themselves. And I love it. Like there is something, I mean, when somebody does something so, like I've got this one guy who's training right now for Eagle Man, and he writes me and says, what did you think of my swim? And that was like his weakest sport. Now he's really like almost, I would say that's probably one of his strongest sports at this point. And I keep telling him, get on the bike, gotta get on the bike. But he gets so excited, and that excitement makes me feel so happy. Like it just it just makes me really feel good. And to me, it's something really important to always mentor. Like I'm also an adjunct at a couple of different colleges, and just mentoring the students and stuff like that. Like that whole thing is just, to me, is very important. I feel like it's a way for me to give back, and I love it. That
What an amazing, as I got a little, what an amazing way to give back and to help coach others. I know you mentioned that you've had your share of DNSs for the half iron distance or the middle distance, but that hasn't deterred you from coaching others. And I think that is absolutely beautiful. And I think it's a testament to others. Like, don't allow what may be your hindrance to not allow you to move forward in a thing or not have the self confidence to move forward because you didn't feel like you've conquered it. It doesn't mean that you can't motivate others to finish and to be the best versions of themselves.
Thank you.
Hilary, what a joy and a treat it's been for you to just share a little bit about your story, ranging from your story to your book, your coaching, the Google uh, adventure goggles that got you started. What I think this shows is there's no straight way to triathlon. And no matter how you get to the sport, you belong here and you have a place here. And it's up to you with what you do with it once you get here. Whether it's you try one time or you try hundreds of times. But the goal is to get out there and to try. So if you're listening to this, just know that there's a group for you, which I think I'm a part of it, but I never really like fully understood it. So maybe I'll come back in and tap into the group. But that you can go and hear other stories and be in a commiserate with others in the Pathetic Triathlon group on Facebook. You can connect with Hilary at Hilary Topper social media. And be sure to go get her book. I'll try to link everything. Sometimes you can put stuff to link things to it and it doesn't link, but we'll put the information on where you can go and you can copy and paste it. But that's it. We're going to do a couple of rapid fire questions and then we're going to get after it. Are you ready, Hilary?
Ready.
Let's do this. All right. What's one thing every beginner overthinks?
I think it's what's one thing every beginner thinks?
Overthinks.
Oh, overthinks. I think it's the actual race, that they're overthinking it, and instead of just taking that moment and just kind of thinking about the race in your mind without overthinking it. Like, just, okay, you can visualize the race, but don't get yourself so caught up in it that you get beside yourself, that you get so nervous that you can't even start the race.
Let's see. Favorite post-race treat?
Probably a hamburger.
I would agree. Race day mantra.
Don't dream it, be it.
Mm,
Don't
I
dream it.
like that. That's similar to one of my little mantras.
I actually have it on my arm. I don't know if you could see it. No, it's hard to see.
You had a whole tattoo of it.
Yep, a whole tattoo of it.
Um, what's your most pathetic triathlete moment that you've had?
Um, hmm. What's the most oh goodness, that's a hard one. I think what you said before, that is sometimes I just sign up for things without even realizing what I'm getting myself into. I think that's pathetic enough.
Well, then that's me and you both, sis. We both pathetic in that. Your goggles fill up with water mid-swim. What do you do?
You either keep swimming, which is what I typically do. I keep swimming, even if I get a leg cramp or something like that, I just keep swimming. When you get to the buoy, you could just like slightly, tilt your goggles, empty them out a little bit, and keep going. But you can't just stop. You gotta, if you get a cramp or you get water in your goggles, you gotta keep going forward.
Best thing about being a triathlete.
I think it's the community. I think it's the people that you meet along the way, and it's the camaraderie that you have, with other people. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm going to Colorado, I'm going to meet people there, or I'm going to Texas, I'm going to meet people there, and everybody, we're all part of one big community, and it's awesome.
And Hilary, we don't allow people to leave this podcast without answering this question. Do
Uh-oh.
you pee on the bike or do you get off and take a proper pee break?
So, I have actually tried. I actually have a hard time peeing in the water, believe it or not. Like, some people just pee, and they swim and they pee, and I can't figure it out. It's like I got some. Um, that I was obsessed with that for a really long time. No, I can't pee on the bike because I have a hard time.
Wow, it happens to the best of us. With that said, we have the saying at Try Beginner's Luck, whenever you try, you always win. And we believe that to be true. With that said, if you've loved what you've heard, share it with someone. If you love what you hear on all the podcasts, share it with your friends who are on your favorite podcast platforms and on YouTube and Substack. My name is Mashonda Miles, also known as Mashonda Shines. And for today, until next episode, we are out. Peace. Bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win.